Arizona destroyed Colorado, and Coach Brennan appears safe and sound. Plus, are the Wildcats the frontrunner to land yet another top 30 basketball recruit?
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Wildcats. I'm your host, Leif Thulin, your resident college basketball guru, stats nerd, point guard by game, and ball knower by trade. And I'm excited to talk with you about both Arizona hoops and Arizona football today. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the app today. Today on the show, I'll analyze Arizona's win, drubbing, absolute demolition of the Colorado Buffaloes, the ramifications of that win, what bowl games seem to be in play, Coach Brennan's tenure, and is it extended already just on the virtue of that win? And also, I'm going to touch on basketball recruiting updates as Arizona is in another top 3 for a very prominent recruit. And boy, are they excelling in the world of basketball after beating Florida. That was awesome. Still excited about it. And we're going to talk more about basketball and why that win really will help Arizona in the recruiting path down the road. So let's dive right in. Arizona blasted Colorado, as I thought they might, considering Arizona came off a bye. And as I've said numerous times, Arizona was just a few plays away from being 6-1 before the bye, instead being 4-3. And they played a team that got smoked 53-7 against Utah, a hungry team the week before. And it just feels like in a situation where you're playing a hungry team and it's a team that you have history with, if you lose 53-7, there's a deeper issue. And very few teams can recover from that. I'm a big believer in film study. I do it for basketball. I do it for football. And in film study, Arizona was exposed by Houston, seeing the BYU film run up the gut. Houston did the same thing, wore down the Wildcats. And similarly, Arizona saw Utah pulverize Colorado, gashing them with chunk plays. And they did the same. The recipe was there. But also, I think more importantly, morale seemed to be gone for Colorado. And the culture and the belief, the togetherness, and just I would say this. That was my biggest concern for what Arizona was going to do. And the culture, the belief, the togetherness, that means a ton in football, all seemed very much positive for Arizona. Speaking of togetherness, team culture, I'd stated that if this team won this game, it would be because of a dominant first half. And it would reveal if they believe in Coach Brennan in the first couple minutes of this game. And I thought that they would beat Colorado convincingly in the preview. I did not know it would be this convincing, though. I did not think it would be this convincing because it was in Boulder, but I did think it was going to be, I believed I said it would be a solid win, a comfortable win. So it was more than comfortable. It was a 35-point margin of victory, and that marked Arizona's largest Big 12 win in Big 12 conference history. At this point, I know that tenure is still young, but that's what transpired. We saw a team that still believes they're a good football team, despite 2 disheartening defeats that jeopardized the season and jeopardized the belief of the team. Arizona is now 5-2. We're going to look at the big picture. 5-2, 2-3 in conference play. But with that said, I had said this, and I still believe this is a reasonably easy schedule to go and have a positive record throughout, but one that if the team had given up could have presented issues and led to missing a bowl game. I said that if they can beat Colorado and beat them convincingly, that I see a path for Arizona to finish the season 4-2, including that game, or maybe even 5-1. And the path actually just got easier due to injuries from other teams. We'll explore that a little bit later. Arizona, I've said this numerous times as well, but I'm going to reiterate this because I think this is the reason that to have optimism about Arizona this season, more so than Coach Brennan, more so than we were close to winning these other games. But the reason for optimism is Arizona is the best quarterback in the conference. And I've been saying that for a little bit, and I got some flack. But he tossed 4 touchdowns in the first half, and big play Trey scored yet again. And Noah Fifita, accordingly, was named the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week for one half of action. He's slinging the rock with the best of them this year. And I think he's the best quarterback in the conference. And when you have that, you have a chance to win any game, any and every game, if the defense shows up at all. And the defense more than showed up in this one. Arizona's defense was opportunistic, and they were very good in the front seven, and the game script forced more turnover-worthy plays. But Arizona's defense opportunistically forced 5 Colorado turnovers, holding the Buffs to just 261 yards of offense. And they also successfully contained Colorado's run game, which is a huge key to this game because Arizona, prior to playing Colorado, had been gashed by the Cougars of BYU and of Houston. They allowed only 128 rushing yards. The word opportunistic, is one I like about defenses, but I also carry some concern about the consistency of a defense and how many chances Arizona will have to win big and close games, because while they have the best quarterback in the conference, in my opinion, the bend don't break defense that has to be Arizona's hope this year defensively is better as a last resort and a something to hang your hat on in high scoring games, as opposed to having it be something against teams that like to run the ball, because the run defense for Arizona has been suspect. It isn't great, but the front seven looked really good in this one, and that's against a poor running team. So that prevents fewer stylistic issues. Plus, Colorado is chasing from the get-go, and that game script flips, and it plays to Arizona's favor. In sum, Arizona relieved the fans and showed that they're still a confident team with bowl game aspirations. And that, I think, is actually a really big point, because everyone, thinks, oh, of course they should want to win. Of course that you want to have a chance to play in a bowl game. Yeah, and you do. There's money involved. There's pride involved, both for the players, for the program, for the athletic department. But I think it's difficult to understand how tightly knit teams are, how much time and effort is put into a season. And if a team doesn't believe in the coach, it's really hard to muster up the energy to play really well. And I used Utah as an example last year. They believe in Kyle Whittingham, but Utah went 4-8 because they didn't believe that their quarterback was good enough to lead them anywhere. They were better than a 4-8 roster. They had injuries and a lack of belief. And I would say the lack of belief cost them 4 wins. And it's just a disheartening thing. Arizona got over disheartening losses that they could have won and easily could be 7-1 right now doing this podcast. Instead, 5-3, and there's belief. This is still a confident team. And it really restored hope there. So my question for you guys that I want you to answer in the comments is, how far can this team go? I don't think there's really a path to make it to a Big 12 championship game, but what's the record? What type of bowl games do you anticipate them reaching? And we're going to talk about the schedule that enables Arizona to have a good chance to win a lot of these games. Revisit to the keys to the game that I laid out on Locked On Wildcats last week prior to the game, and see how they did, and go through the film and point out, was that achieved? Was it not? Probably achieved in a 52-17 win. We'll explore that and much, much more on Locked On Wildcats next. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next bucket to the fourth quarter comebacks that you love and know very well as an NBA fan. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay and shoot for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making a late push. So right now, FanDuel is offering new customers $300 in bonus bets from your first $5 bet. When your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked On Wildcats. Leif Thulin with you here. It was a great weekend of sports for Arizona. And I guess a weekend plus the Monday, because Arizona crushed Colorado and are just one game away from clinching a bowl game berth. And then Arizona basketball beat the defending champions, and Koa Peat had 30. And I think Arizona's got the best quarterback in the conference and perhaps the best basketball player in the conference as well, who I was too low on. And I think that's flabbergasting, because I've known about Koa Peat for over half a decade, and I still didn't realize how good he was. And not only is he a first-team All-Big 12 contender, not only is he a first-team Big 12 contender, and I had said, as long as he's one of the 10 best players, first team and then second team, then Arizona's got a chance. He might be a first-team All-American, and I think Arizona might be a number one team in the country at some point this season in basketball. So Just how good is this Arizona football team, though? It's a great weekend, and it instilled belief in both programs. But what does the schedule look like, and how conducive is it for success for Noah Fifita and the Arizona Wildcats football team? It's very interesting because had Coach Brennan not won this game, I really think that his time was going to be over as soon as the season ended. But now he's got a chance to put together a successful season with a team that I would say is talented, but it is not overly talented. You don't have a Tetairoa McMillan. You don't have some of the guys that have been offensive line monsters that have gone high in NFL drafts. And you see that the culture is good, being able to rebound nicely after back-to-back absolutely heart-wrenching losses. So let's explore that schedule and see what Brent Brennan is going to have. The other thing about Coach Brent Brennan, I think it's very interesting because there's been times in basketball and in football, a coach saves his job. And then soon after, a lot of people bemoan the saving of the job and say, oh, we'd be better off for a couple years if he had not been there. I wonder if that's going to be the case. Maybe he'll build a culture. But for a lot of people, calling his name saying we want him gone to now beating Colorado convincingly, like Colorado's not very good. Is it really a safe and sound thing? Let me know what you guys think. I think he is safe and sound because I believe in the culture of winning that convincingly. I don't think it's necessarily performance. I just think that the fact he kept the locker room motivated after all of that, I think is important. So without further ado, let's talk about the schedule. Against Kansas at home, to me, I listed that as a practically a must win to make a bowl when I was most nervous. I still think it's a must win because you should win that game at home. And you've had chances against really good teams. BYU ranked very well in the college football playoff reveal. At Cincinnati, that's an interesting game now because Cincinnati got absolutely boat raced by Utah. And Utah's got some flaws. Utah has some warts and absolutely boat raced a team like Cincinnati at Rice-Eccles Stadium. And Utah had lost to BYU, whom Arizona had every chance to beat. So, those type of things don't always matter, but I do think it matters to say that these teams aren't in disparate worlds despite Cincinnati previously being ranked. Then you play Baylor at home, who has a NFL caliber quarterback, Sawyer Robertson. And then you close against ASU, but they don't have Levitt now. So let me give you my quick read, and then I'll dive into more film and give you breakdowns each week on these matchups. But I believe Arizona beats Kansas, and we'll preview that later this week. I think Cincinnati is likely a loss, but I think they have some serious flaws that could show up and present themselves in that game in order for Arizona to sneak a win. But I think it's difficult to do so against a team on the road. It's traveling that far, especially a team that still has a mathematical chance to make it to the Big 12 championship if given luck. But when you get beaten that badly when ranked as the higher team like they did against Utah, usually things go wrong. I've watched enough sports to know that. And they had their bells rung. And I think they fall out of contention in the Big 12. And the question is, how do they rally back? Can they rally back? And there is some pressure on those programs that have been very good before, lose a coach, and now they need to be good again. That's difficult. So then so you're at 1-1, according to me on that. Then you go home against Baylor. I think it's interesting, but you got to like Fifita and company in that one against Baylor, who is, had, to put it lightly, up and down seasons. In their program's history, there have been some serious highs and there have been some serious lows. And right now, I think they're somewhere in the middle. They do have talent, but I don't think they have the depth to really be a legitimate force. And I just think that Arizona at that point should have more confidence as a program. And I think they have the better quarterback in the collegiate game. I think Sawyer Robertson's good. I really do. I think Noah Fifita is a better collegiate quarterback. And give me the home team, give me the better collegiate quarterback, and in my opinion, a team with more weapons. I think Arizona has ways to manufacture points that few teams do. And if the defense shows up, that's particularly important because the teams that run the ball a ton are the ones that I'm more scared of for Arizona than teams that have big-time arms. And I also think, like I said, this Baylor team isn't absolutely loaded with talent as they have been before. So that's the schedule up until the big rivalry game against ASU. And without Levitt, it's hard to give you a real analysis of what Arizona State is. I would say Arizona State should be favored. I know you guys aren't going to like that, but I think Sims is good. And crazy stuff happens in that game, and so it could go any which way. The rivalry brings out good stuff, it brings out bad stuff, it brings off chaos. And Sims came in and generated a lot of offensive uh, movement. They moved the ball very well, but also it generated different looks. The offense looks a little bit different than when Levitt's at quarterback. He's less polished, but perhaps even more dynamic. And I would say that the drop off, because I haven't seen enough yet of Sims, isn't large enough for me to say that the favor swings back to the Wildcats side. To be determined, to be evaluated in the future, and we'll reevaluate that. So I see 7 or 8 wins prior to a bowl game, and I think that's very likely. And if you get 8 wins, let's say you get 8, you're 8-4 on the season. You got to be pretty pleased with the season. You know, you'd hope you could be 10-2. You hope you can compete for a Big 12 championship. But Rome wasn't built in a day. Like I know it's annoying to say, "Oh, be patient," but at that point, I think that retains Coach Brennan easily. And I'll ask you guys the question: how many wins retains Coach Brennan with confidence for you? Is there a number that can be reached to have that confidence? And how many wins or how few of wins tells you he's gone? Like, what has to happen for him to be ousted in your mind? And what do you think the percentage possibility it is that he is gone? Uh, I think winning as convincingly as he did against Colorado proved he still has the belief, the buy-in, the confidence of a locker room, and that means just about everything in football. A tightly knit group, a foxhole guy, and he just instills belief in the team. And I think he really clarified how much of a relief, a weight off the back it was to win that game and have no drama to it after losing dramatically twice in a row prior to that. But what's the trajectory of this team with him at the helm? And is there a number of wins he must reach to be held on to, or is that done and dusted? I think he's safe, but you guys tell me. And is it right to keep him if he makes the bowl, but versus big games, the Wildcats lose? Like against the big names, the big games, the Big 12 conference, and they come up short? Like, is it right to keep that guy, or is it one step backwards? Is it one step backwards to lose him and 2 steps forward to get a new guy? I'm curious about that. Okie dokie. Keys to the game that just happened. I said Colorado has the worst rushing defense in the Big 12, so that Arizona can have a multifaceted approach and feed Mahdi. That was who I thought they'd feed the most. And I asked the question of, like, he averages 11 carries per game entering this one, but he had only 6 carries against Houston and only 7 against BYU. I thought that was strange. And I asked the question of what happened to 22 carries for 189 against Kansas State. And that was my take. And I said, and I quote, I think Arizona should use the threat of Fifita and his precision to gash the Buffaloes on the ground, and then it'll open up even more for Noah. If you keep Fifita upright, he will be great. And to me, that's a clear-cut check mark, right? I think if you have any balance and you keep him upright, Arizona's offense should gash the Buffaloes. He had 4 touchdowns in the first half, and they scored 6 of 7 drives. As for Arizona, in terms of the running game, they ran for 204 yards, and admittedly, the blowout raises the amount of carries. And Mahdi did have a touchdown, but he only had 3 carries for 85 yards. But the 3 carries is a lower number than I anticipated. But I would still say that's a whopping check mark. The next key was get the ball to big play Trey, as I like to call him, Trey Spivey, as he scores more than half the time he touches it. And he opened the tallies of this game, 57-yarder to the house, making people miss. He's electric. You got to give him the ball. Now, the real game-defining key that I laid out for Arizona, and it's this game, but it'll be the key for each week. And I think it's more nuanced than just saying, oh, keep Fifita upright. I said on the season, Arizona is 8th in the Big 12 in rushing yards allowed, allowing 140 per game. And they can and should win this game because Colorado doesn't run it well. Good for 15th in the conference at 130 per game and only 3.8 per tote. For reference, BYU, the 2 weeks prior to that, was 2nd in the conference in yards and 4th in attempts, and Houston is 3rd in attempts and 8th in yards. Colorado, I think, is likely, this is what I said prior, I think they're likely to establish the run because that's what they've seen. But my reason for optimism for Arizona is Arizona's weakness is getting off the field by stopping the run, and the run doesn't seem to be a strength for the Buffaloes, and they are not imminently in danger of Colorado's run game. The answer to that question and that theorization was Colorado ran 42 times. That is a very conscientious attempt to run the ball, but just for 129 yards for 3.1 per tote. And Arizona was stingy in that regard, and Colorado isn't particularly good there, but did try to run, and Arizona shored themselves up, did a better job, although against an inferior team. And because Arizona stopped the run and built a lead, it led to a game script where turnovers became a real factor with the defense forcing all 5. And that is a massive win from the defense. The front 7 was great. Arizona exceeded expectations when achieving those keys en route to smoking Colorado. I thought they'd win. I thought they'd win convincingly, but it's difficult to envision that being the outcome, the score, when it was a 4-point spread. Arizona, speaking of keys, we went through the keys for basketball. Arizona's basketball is off to a flying start, beating the defending champs, but the key was a freshman. His name was Koa Peat, and they might have another one coming their way. I got a recruiting update for you next, and reason for optimism on Arizona basketball beyond just beating Florida. All righty, welcome back to Locked On Wildcats. Leif Thulin with you here. Like I said, Arizona beat Florida. Koa Peat was the key to that game. There were a lot of keys I outlined. We went through it on the postcast show as well as the recap show that I did in the morning. But the reason that I bring this up and I say, yeah, you need to think about it from the perspective of in the way I want to say this is essentially the reason that it is important to think about what Koa Peat did is because Arizona can have that year in, year out now. And I'll break down how that pipeline can happen. But Koa Peat wasn't the only freshman who had an impact. Burry's had a bad game and Arizona still won. That's another reason I'm super optimistic about this team. But Ivan Karchenkov played a big role. Dwayne Aristode came off the bench. There's 4 freshmen playing on a team that I think, and I've told you this numerous times, can be number 1 in the country this year, can really be a threat to cut down the nets. And Cam Holmes is a guy from Phoenix, Arizona, and he's a guy that it has a lot of buzz around him. He's a guy that has gone on visits. Arizona is one of the front runners, and he has officially listed his top 3. He's down to 3 schools. He told Rivals he's down to 3 schools and will announce his college commitment on Sunday, November 9th. Well, that's not far away. That's not far away at all. And Arizona could be 2-0 at that point, should they beat Utah Tech, as I assume they will, and could also be given a gift over the weekend on Sunday. We'll recap that, and we'll touch on that on the Monday show as well. The 6'6" small forward, Cam Holmes, is a top 30 overall recruit in the 2026 class. His top 3 were as follows: Arizona, Dayton, and North Carolina. You may say, like, Dayton, what are they doing there? That's not a team that you typically see. Like, maybe they're a real threat. They are a real threat because they have great success with the Holmes family. His older brother is Daron Holmes, who was an All-American, second-team All-American 2 seasons ago for Dayton. And you guys may remember him because he played against Arizona. And I saw him play against Arizona. And when Arizona beat Dayton in Salt Lake City at March Madness, I was at that game. And I think if you're Cam Holmes, saw that game and you think, wow, this team could be conducive to my game because he's not as big as his brother and he's going to play quickly. And then you see Ivan Karchenkov start. You see Koa Peat have the ball in his hands. And you see another guy from the Arizona area in Cam Williams. And these guys know each other well. They both, are in the Arizona mix. Tommy Lloyd has visited both of them. They've both done official visits. It's hard to envision a world where Arizona's not the front runner. And the Wildcats, Perk 247, have a crystal ball to land the services of Cam Holmes from Millennium in Goodyear, Arizona. I learned that a couple weeks ago. That still is the case right now. I'm sure both teams, Dayton and North Carolina, are trying whatever they can do to recruit him. But I strongly believe Arizona's the front runner, and they've done nothing to nothing but improve their chances since that quote came out and the idea of the crystal ball said, "Oh, yeah, he's the favorite." Dayton's probably the runner-up in this, in my opinion, but I think Arizona's got Cam Holmes. I really do. So he has the genes, he has the skills, and he has the pathway for playing time, which is something that freshmen always want. He saw Ivan Karchenkov play, he saw Dwayne Aristode play, and of course he saw Koa Peat play. Koa Peat more than played. He balled out. He was dominant. He was fantastic. But speaking of him, I think it's really important to get this commitment especially because it lays down a foundation. Arizona has the crystal ball to land him, and he slides in as a vital piece to a class that could be tremendous as Arizona continues to their pursuit of Cameron Williams, the top 5 recruit who also happens to be from the state of Arizona. So if you keep the local guys in town and the great things happen on the court, I think this could be a potential pipeline that is touched on time and time again. And I have 2 quotes from media today that stand out to me very prominently when thinking about recruiting. And here we are. This is a quote from Koa Peat. And he said, and it's Koa Peat saying why he went to Arizona and why to go to Arizona. And I listed this for the everydayers as a reason for Cam Williams to attend Arizona because he's a top 5 pick, and Koa Peat just scored 30 against Florida. And if you are going to see a freshman do that and you're going to be his replacement, it's pretty hard not to think, wow, I would thrive there. But Koa Peat said as follows: I think the development plan they put together for me during my recruiting process really helped me pick. My decision comes down to my decision to come here and play for U of A. And just the way Coach Lloyd uses his 4s and just the way the structure of the offense, I mean, he's going to let you play, but there's obviously some structure. But not in that structure, he's still going to let you have freedom and play your game. And you got to play both sides of the ball. You can't just rely on offense. You got to play defense too. Koa Peat played exceptionally on both ends of the floor. It accumulated 3 blocks in that game, and 3 steals in that game, and a monstrous block. And he demonstrated that you can play within an offense that's going to be top 10 in efficiency year in and year out, and you can also have your individual brilliance and creativity. Koa Peat made this outline for why to play at Arizona in that statement because Tommy Lloyd has said this, and I think it really helps also give the vision for why a 5-star like Cameron Williams should go, but also a guy like Cameron Holmes, who you see a true path for him to play because he seems to resemble Ivan Karchenkov. So he says as follows: a lot of schools focus on transfer. For us, the first thing we're going to do is look at high school kids. I'm just a big believer that these really good high school players still got to have a place to go. And so sometimes they're maybe not as valued, or they're a little bit more forgotten about when they have been in the past. Like I'm going to break the quote. It used to be that the freshmen mattered all the time, but now you can cherry pick 22-year-olds. And back to Lloyd. So we kind of fell into a group of freshmen, kind of one by one, that we felt great about. And as we looked at them, we were like, well, for the most part, these guys are better than any chances we could take. So let's roll with these guys, and we feel great about those decisions. He believes, this is Tommy Lloyd believes in recruiting great players and letting them go play prominent roles, and that's rare today. Not many teams can say that. It's really Arizona, and it's Duke, and maybe Arkansas with Calipari. And Arizona is now a blue blood, both in terms of their long-term history of success, and they're only getting better. Like Tommy Lloyd's won at a 78% clip at Arizona. He's made 3 out of 4 years a Sweet 16 in taking over a big-time program, building it his way. Offensively, top 10 every year efficiency. Pace is going to be fast. It's fun to play there. And they just beat Florida with the 4-man, demonstrating you can get the ball and play with individual creativity and dominance. And the 3 getting a double-double. And those 2 players play those 2 positions. So I think Arizona is becoming a blue blood in the recruiting world, and in the performances are backing it up on the court. So that'll be something to monitor. We'll keep you posted. Sunday, the 9th, there is a commitment coming from Cam Holmes. I expect it to be Arizona. Let me know what you guys think. And thank you guys for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Big 12. Drake Toll breaks down the most exciting conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championships and every game in between. Find Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.